Welcome, listener. This is Sebastian Nothwell, here today with Carolina Cruz.
Hello.
And Noah Hawthorne.
Hello.
To talk about older characters in romance.
I'm so pumped.
Sha-la-la-la-la. Now, what do we think when we think of older characters? How are we defining older?
Yeah.
Because it's a very relative word, and romance tends to skew shockingly young in the grand scheme of things.
Quite young. I've seen people say older is in like mid to late, like the age that I as a person am right now. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Older to me has to be... Okay, so older to me is like 50. I feel like some people mean in their 30s.
I feel like the old man yaoi cutoff is 50 plus.
I agree.
In romance as a whole, however, it does seem to mean anyone over the age of 30. There was a friend of mine at a convention that shall not be named passed by the booth of an author who shall not be named, because neither one of them, the institution or the author, are responsible for the genre conventions that led to this moment.
Oh no.
But this author did have a banner in their booth that says, "Romance doesn't have to end at 30.
Oh no.
Which, like, oh my god, what a scathing, unintentional question mark.
See, okay. I feel like we should have expected this for this episode, but I think it's really crazy how, like, harmful that can be to people's conceptions of when is a normal time to find love in real life.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who are in their 30s who are starting to feel like they're running out of time. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like, I mean, I'm one to talk. I got married at like 23, so there's that. But... I don't know. I feel like these are some of my, like, hottest and most appealing friends who deserve everything in life, and to hear them talk about themselves as if their clocks run out when they're, like, only 30, I'm like, that really hurts my soul, and I blame you, romance writers. Just kidding.
I blame you, the media.
But yeah, I think 50 is older.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, what I feel to be old in romance is not what I consider to be old in real life. Just because I'm so used to, like, when you go into any kind of book, the characters are usually, like, 20, 30 years old. So to see, like, a 45-year-old character, it's like, oh, man, we're going into, we're getting there. But yeah, I think 50 is good, and that's a good start. Because, like, yeah, it's older, but I still want to see, like, 60, 70-year-old characters. It's a totally different perspective, and there's so many different stories you could do and play with.
Mm-hmm.
If I were really sticking to my principles, I would say it's not old until the characters can apply for an AARP membership. But, like...
What's the cutoff for that? I actually don't know.
55, right?
I think it's 55. I think they start sending you literature at 50, and then, like, you sign up at 55.
Okay.
But I feel like I have to concede the 50-year mark just because, and I'm gonna cite Tumblr as the source of the problem because that's my primary form of social media, but I'm sure it's happening elsewhere that I'm just not seeing. Confirm, deny for me, listener. But there are some individuals who are tagging characters in their 40s with old man yaoi, and it's like,
oh,
no.
Heavens.
No.
To me, 40 is, like, middle age.
Those are middle-aged.
Yes, middle age.
That's just a man.
Yeah, that's just a man.
Yeah, it is. It is middle age.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a guy.
We can't forget about the woman.
Yes.
True.
It's just like a new milestone for anybody. When she hit like 40, I feel like that's a whole new era. Like, that's just the beginning. And then, like, at 60, you kind of go through that again.
So I'm gonna be fully transparent. When it came time to define what older characters was, I thought to myself about, like, a character that I have a crush on, where I'd be like, okay, this is like me having a thing for a quote-unquote older woman. And so I Googled the age of Hannah Waddingham, who plays Rebecca in Ted Lasso, and she is 51 in 4 days. And I was like, well, I think that pretty succinctly puts it at 50. That is where my information is coming from.
I feel like 50 works very well, but yeah, within the romance genre, I think we are going to have to concede that any character over 30 will be considered older by the reader in most cases.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think that that's like a totally bad thing to keep in mind in this discussion, because I think a lot of the things that I like about older characters in romance could kind of apply to anyone over 30. I think when I think of older, I might also just be sectioning it off from young. You know? Anyone who's not young is old. That's the definition.
True.
Like, I'm 31, and I feel like I've lived a lot more life than probably most 30-year-olds. Like, you know, when you become adult at 15, 16, you know, and just, you have a different kind of life experience, so.
Exactly.
Like you say, maybe you're sectioning off those eras or parts of life, and now we're dealing with the later on parts.
Yeah.
Very true.
100%.
So what is the appeal of older characters in romance?
Well, I think Noah started to get into it pretty well. It's the fact that there's, like, more lived experience. There's more to the person as a character. There's, like, history and different things in their past that can add depth, that when you're writing a younger character, there's only so much that someone who's, like, in their early 20s can have done. And I feel like that's something that some authors run into trouble with, where they're trying to make characters in their 20s extremely, like, accomplished and cool and badass. And it's like, I feel like when I was in my early 20s, I was lounging around watching Parks and Rec all day. So
Ever so long ago when you were merely in your early 20s.
exactly.
But not with the wisdom of age.
As opposed to now, where all I do is sit around and watch Ted Lasso as previously established. My point is that I just feel as though when you have an older character, it's much easier to give them a sense of gravity moving throughout the world, because their experiences are more believable for the amount of time that they've been alive. You can do more with them.
You know what I was thinking about earlier? I was talking to a friend, and basically the concept of reconnecting with friends that you had when you were, say, just out of high school, or younger, or as a younger adult, reconnecting with them when you're older, and just realizing how much different of people you've become, either them or you or both, and like, you have different friends as an older person than when you do when you're younger, and they experience a different phase of your life with you, and that's something really interesting to see with characters and kind of play around with, you know, introducing the new friends to the old. And because aside from the romance bit, there's a lot of just life experience, which you've touched on, but I was just thinking about that as well.
Very much so, yes.
I feel like the drama with older characters can have much deeper roots as well.
We can traumatize them more, let's just say it.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
We can give them all of our worst, you know, we can just have so much fun.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, yeah, there is a lot of potential there. And this is skipping ahead a little bit, but as soon as you said that, all I could think of was Professor X and Magneto in the X-Men franchise, where because we meet them as elderly men, we can spiral back through their long, long history of friendships turned to bitter enemies.
Yes.
And how there's still something there. There's still an attachment, even though they've gone through so much of this together and apart. And you really just don't get that with a Scott Summers.
You really don't. You really don't. You do get it to an extent with the Logan and Sabretooth situation, but that's, I feel like they haven't quite hit the like, well-aged maturity of a Cherrick. Oh, don't get me friggin' started, bro. But yeah, no, definitely I think the history that characters can have with each other when they're older can lend some real emotional depth to stuff and get even more destroying than you can get with someone who hasn't had the time to have those kinds of relationships in their life. And even if that type of person is gone, you've lost more people by the time that you're older too. You've got people in your life who you've learned from who are no longer around. It goes back to the experiences thing. There's just so many different things that you can have been through that it leads to just a richer character.
Agreed. Yeah, more years gives greater potential for slow burn, because you get to stretch out that timeline. You get greater potential for second chance romance if these people have met earlier and somehow missed each other like ships passing in the night, but now...
Right person, wrong time. Ooh. Ow.
And yeah, the only flavor better than enemies to lovers is friends to enemies to lovers.
Mm-hmm.
And if both protagonists are in their 60s, you have so much more time to develop that. Spinning off of the appeal, but still firmly rooted in appeal for me, we get some intersections that perhaps some readers might not have yet considered when it comes to romances with older characters. And the first would be the intersection with disability, because the short version is, you are only ever temporarily able-bodied.
This is true.
It's gonna happen, guys.
I'm gonna talk about Sons of Anarchy.
And for those of us who are experiencing impaired vision, impaired hearing, or mobility issues, amongst other conditions, earlier in life than our peers, the experiences of the elderly can read very familiar.
The intense empathy that I feel towards Clay Morrow in fucking Sons of Anarchy, who is Ron Perlman. He has arthritis in his hands, and he is losing his ability to ride his motorcycle as the leader of this motorcycle club. And when I first watched the show years and years ago, I was having mobility issues in my own hands, and I was having grip issues, but I hadn't had a truly bad day with that yet. But between that first watch and this watch, I had a flare-up bad enough in my hands where I couldn't properly count dimes at my place of work because I couldn't hold them and pick them up. I didn't have those fine motor skills. So on this rewatch, there's the kind of thing that you don't see with younger characters a lot. There's the inevitability of it that seems to be sinking into someone who is losing their ability to do something that they really love to do. And there's such a, oh my god, I love it so much. There's such a tender but sad connection between him and his wife, who I'll talk more about later, who gives him these injections in between his fingers and his hand to help out with the pain. And it's like the tenderness of helping someone go through this loss of a part of yourself like that while still not experiencing it yourself, it makes my heart ache, and especially even more since I'm experiencing similar stuff myself. So that's one specific example of that intersection that I know really hit me hard.
Bouncing off of that, the number one thing when it comes to writing disability in fiction is there's no magic cure, right? And finding someone that's going to be with you and have that tenderness and intimacy and being vulnerable with them and allowing them to help you and guide you through it. They can't fix it for you, but they can help you make it a little bit better. And that develops when you've been with someone for so long and they have been watching you be in pain and struggle for so long. And that is, yeah.
Yeah. As we age, everyone develops these issues one way or another. So even if it's not to the same extent that the one partner is going through something, you're helping each other. And it's this kind of like inevitability and matter-of-factness to the fact that as you grow older, you will need help. And having someone there who can help you and who will help you even when they're mad at you, even when you've had a rough day or you're not in the like best of moods, like that is something that is so like specific.
It's true fucking love, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it reads more like true love, to me at least, than any, like, grand gesture between able-bodied 20-somethings.
Yeah, 100%.
What do you think, Sebastian?
Yeah, Sebastian. Speak, boat boy.
You both covered anything and everything I wanted to say and beyond, so all I have left to add is sometimes it's nice to read about someone else whose first thought regarding a spicy encounter is, oh no, their knees and or spine.
Their hips! Oh god!
Sometimes it's nice to have the oh no, my hips acknowledged in the text.
Yes, it makes me feel seen.
I feel witnessed.
Oh my god.
And the other intersection that came to my mind, at least, was the queer experience. Because growing old is a privilege, full stop, and it's one, I think, particularly to be celebrated in the queer community, when we lost almost an entire generation to HIV/AIDS, and who even now do not always get to grow old like their cishet peers. So having older characters, particularly in queer romance, is both a badge of resilience and a beacon of hope.
I love having older characters who are only just now discovering that they're queer.
Yes.
That's me.
Yes.
I love it. I love it because I mean Severance, I'm not sure if Irv in Severance, because you know that Bert, who is the other old man in the Old Man Yaoi, is married to a man. So you know he knew. But with Irv, it feels like there's a lot of discovery going on, and I'm really curious about that. That show isn't done yet, so I don't know for sure. But I also love it with, and Sons of Anarchy again, Gemma, who is married to Clay. They go through a really messy end to their relationship. And as she is recovering from that, she learns that she's bi. And it's a really fun thing to see her just kind of accept that about herself pretty quickly. It's obvious before it's canon. Like, she's got tension with every woman on the screen. But it's so, like, natural and casual to the character that I totally forgot that it was canon until the rewatch. And then I was like, oh, shit, they just say it. She just is. We just know. And I really enjoyed getting to see that, not because it made me feel seen in any specific way. I knew I was queer when I was in late high school, early college, so I won't claim that I understand what that's like. But I know that that's, like, an important piece of representation because so many people feel like you can't make that discovery later in life. Like, you have to know who you are, like, young.
Which really just isn't how it works, thanks to compulsory heterosexuality.
Thanks, society.
The social pressure to be straight discourages people so early and throughout their lives from exploring their sexuality and realizing anything more about themselves than what they've been told must be true. Like, the number of people I know who will remain unnamed and unidentified because, frankly, they deserve that privacy, but a very dear loved one of mine did not realize until she was in her 30s that she was interested in women and had just kept dating men for decades.
Oh, rest in peace.
And she grew up in a liberal area, in a liberal family. She had queer friends. She was just like, I wonder who that's for. And just kind of kept...
We're gonna revisit that.
Kept at it, and then was like, wait a minute. A Subaru is more than just a practical vehicle.
Oh my god.
And the old range for historical romances, at least as far as when eras of life occur, is different, you know?
Oh, yes. I debated about bringing up Persuasion because, like, the protagonist is in her late 20s, but this is already, like, put her towards the, oh, she's a spinster forever end of the spectrum because of how the Regency works.
Yeah. So I feel like for a character trying to discover and learn the scene, you know, starting in their 30s, that's something I want to read. And I wouldn't say I consider it older, but it's an experience that you don't really get when you read the younger ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many romantic milestones like first kiss or first long-term partner that straight people experience by and large in their teens and 20s that aren't experienced by, frankly, a lot of queer people until their 30s or later. And this only gets more true as you go back further and further in the generations when being remotely queer was even less acceptable. There are so many older people who, in their denouncing of queer people, will be like, listen, everyone wants to make out with their best friend, we just don't do it. And it's just like, Great Aunt Susie, do you want to say something?
Do you have something to say?
Because I can guarantee you, no, not everybody would prefer making out with their best friend to making out with their husband. Like, that's not necessarily true across the board, and maybe, just maybe, you have more in common with the queer community than previously believed. So we've got incentive to celebrate growing old, combined with queer people overall experiencing romantic milestones later in life, which means we ought to be swimming in stories of older queer romance. Right?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Right?
But I think that's why everyone's going wild over Severance, is because we never get this shit. So when we have a side character who's kind of got a thing going on, and it's John Turturro and Christopher Walken, everyone's like, holy shit, it's real. Old Man Yaoi real.
Speaking of Old Man Yaoi real... Let us move on to examples of canon queer romance between older characters.
Hard to find.
I will begin with my youngest example, which is Our Flag Means Death.
Yes.
Both protagonists are in their 40s. and one who had resigned himself to compet and had never realized a queer life was possible for him until he literally ran away to sea to become a pirate. And season 1 is a beautiful love story between these two 40-year-old pirates. And season 2 is also there.
And there was only one season. And there was only one season ever. And nothing else happened. Shame that it got canceled after one season.
Oh, no. My second example, and it's been a minute since I had an excuse to bring it up, but anyone who has glanced at my social media knows this is coming. AMC's cult classic horror miniseries, The Terror.
No way.
I've never heard about it.
Which posits, what if the Franklin expedition, which went missing in the Arctic in the 1840s, was also pursued by a magical polar bear monster?
I have often asked the same question, and I'm really glad they were brave enough to answer it.
And would you believe that among the many perks afforded by this series, there is also a canon queer May-December romance?
Woo!
May-December, for those not in the know, meaning a younger person with an older person. In this case, a gentleman in his 30s with a gentleman in his 60s.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And then, in the realm of fan fiction, everyone just takes all 100+ named sailors and shakes them together in a jar to create infinite pairings.
As they fucking should. It's the same with Conclave. It's like, that's what they're there for.
Most popular pairings involve at least one individual over the age of 50, and this, in conjunction with the scurvy, alcoholism, and lead poisoning, makes the Terror fandom the #1 users of the erectile dysfunction tag on Archive of Our Own.
Oh my god.
We did it!
How have I made it this far without you dropping that tidbit?
I have been the picture of self-restraint.
I'm really proud of you. Holy shit.
But yeah, another appeal of older romance that I forgot to mention is that it allows you to get real creative with regards to spice and finding interesting workarounds to things that people in their 20s often take for granted.
Yes.
I think that that's something that, like, overall is really, like, going back to the intersection with disability, but there's just, like, a lot of things that are normal or that people don't want to talk about that are necessary to talk about when writing older characters, and it becomes a safe way to talk about those things, which I think is super underrated.
Very much so, yes. My other two examples, and then I swear I'll shut up about the canon stuff, is the film When I'm 64. Guess how old the protagonists are. It's about the romance between a retired teacher who can finally live his queer life out loud, and a widower who never considered dating another man before meeting said teacher.
Aw, I'm watching it. For real.
And then my final example is the graphic novel series Letters for Lucardo by Ottavia Haikela. And it is the romance between a 61-year-old mortal man and an eternally 33-year-old vampire.
Oh, I'm obsessed with that idea. I think of Charles and Eric as canon.
Charles and Eric, also known as Magneto and Professor X from the X-Men franchise, the films, the comics.
Yes, Professor X and Magneto. Are they lovers? No, worse. They are one of the most famous versions of Old Man Yaoi. It's like fanon, but it's so fanon that it's canon type of beat.
That's not what canon means, Nina.
It's... Look.
That's not
look.
what it means.
Look. Okay,
Not...
I concede. However, I think when it comes to the way that they are written, well, I'll save it for fandom then, but they are, to me, again, one of the most famous Old Man Yaoi couples, even if the writers are a little behind on the times at some points. I'm so Cherrick-pilled, you can't... I forget that they're not canon.
So for one, it's not necessarily a queer romance, but Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames has, like, it's all old men getting the band back together again. Like, they used to be mercenaries, they're all retired. The main character has, like, a family. There are queer characters in the book, it's just not the main one. But I just really enjoyed that, and just, it was a really good fantasy book with an older character. And just the way they handled all the things that we talked about, I just really enjoyed. And those are like, I think they're like 50s, 60s One of them's in their 70s.
It's so precious and rare to get a fantasy that has characters who are allowed to be old.
Real.
Where, like, it's not just magic's away, or they're not immortal, or they're not, like, elves or whatever.
Yeah, and they're, like, you know, disabled, most of them, in one way or another, and they are aged, and there's things that they used to do that they can't anymore, and it's just, I will always talk about that book. It's really good. And then this one's kind of like young but old. It's the tarot sequence. The characters are in like their late 30s, mid 40s, like the main ones in the main romance, but
I did not realize that. That was always marketed to me as young adult.
oh no.
Which I think might be a symptom of the larger problem of all queer protagonists getting shoved in the young adult box, but that's a discussion for another episode.
No, they definitely are not, and like they also like started life young due to, you know, trauma and upheaval, and so like they have felt every year of their life, and I just, the way a lot of issues are handled and disability and just changing relationships and phases of your life, I just really think it's great for that. Yeah, those are my top two, because all the other ones I think of are like fantasy characters where they're hundreds of years old, but to me they're not that old just because of the way they're written.
Yeah.
Like they don't have that mindset. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they lack that gravitas. They don't really feel it the way that a human in their hundreds would.
Mm-hmm. I do have one. I do have a canon one, I promise.
Okay.
It's Bill and Frank from The Last of Us.
Oh.
That is, again, one that I think a lot of people latched onto because it's so rare to see. It's so well done because the characters are not fleshed out in the game. So to see them have rep that's not really bold and to make that the thing that we decide to expand upon and tell with such a gentle touch, I really enjoyed how, specifically for Nick Offerman's character, I really appreciated how he's not the type of character that you associate with queerness because he's a doomsday prepper kind of guy. So watching him come to terms with himself is a kind of story that, like, I really feel like you don't get to see a lot of. It's so tender and so well told, and it makes great use of an apocalypse as a time that can be a time of new beginnings for someone like Bill, that I really, really loved it.
Yeah. It really struck a chord across at least my corner of the internet.
Same.
Although I do recognize that my corner of the internet is primarily Tumblr and not representative of the population as a whole. But from the scuttlebutt I was seeing across more, shall we say, mainstream nerd spaces, a lot of people who don't usually tune into queer stories were very deeply affected by seeing the Manly Man Parks and Rec guy go through this.
It was really well done. I would say it's worth watching without the rest. If you know zombie stories, you know The Last of Us, you don't really need to watch the rest of the series. Genuinely.
You just need the queer parts. You'll be fine.
Just watch the one episode. It's a standalone story. It's great.
To be fair, it's not the only queer thread in the whole show, but that episode works very well as a standalone.
Yes, there are other queer characters within the franchise, but talking about older characters, it does a really good job with that specific intersection, as we said. It really delves into the reasons why that's compelling and makes it work really well.
Very much so, yes. And now, Nina, you are unleashed and can go into fanon.
I was going to say, I'm like one of those horses. I'm like a horse in a horse race. I'm like ready to go. Cherik. I actually don't need to talk about it very much.
Never mind.
No, the reason that Magneto and Professor X are the biggest Western old man yaoi, TM. Is because they do something that I think a lot of people can find very relatable, which is that they both believe in the same thing differently. And they've had years and years of personal experiences to develop their personal beliefs, and they will not be swayed by anything at this point in their lives. And I think that sets the fandom up. And just anyone who knows anything about these characters tangentially, it feels very doomed to watch these two people who always have believed very strongly in the same thing, but to know that their upbringings have influenced them to have different approaches to that belief. you kind of know if you watch their story from beginning to end that it was always going to end up this way. And I think that's why everyone is so into it, because it's a storyline that just is compelling every step of the way from young to old. But by the time that they're old, it's aged like fine wine, and you get these two men with like this incredibly storied history, and you can love both of them, even though Magneto kills a lot of people sometimes.
Someone much smarter than me on the internet once said that the best tragedies are those where you wish it would turn out any other way, but you know that it could never turn out any other way.
Exactly.
As hinted earlier, another fandom that's gotten really into old men kissing is Conclave.
Yes.
I don't think there are more than 2 named characters under the age of 50 in the whole film, but boy howdy, they are all kissing on Archive of Our Own.
As they should.
I see them all over my Tumblr, too. They're everywhere. I've never seen the show, but I love them. I always reshare the art. They're just gorgeous. It makes me want to watch it, so that's the power of...
That's the power.
It's definitely a film worth watching, just with the understanding that none of them ever kiss in the actual film. This is purely...
But you can see why people want them to.
Yes. This is off topic to the matter at hand. People whoopify the crap out of Tedesco. That man is a horrible human being. And they're like, look, he's vaping. Isn't that silly?
I mean, given what happened with Kylo Ren, I'm not surprised.
Genuinely. That's so real.
Oh, and my other fanon example would be The Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, excellent.
Which is another May-December situation between an older editor of a fashion magazine and the young assistant she hires. And again, there's nothing in the film between them, but it sparked a whole new wave of May-December sapphic romance when it came out, because it turns out a lot of people, and perhaps I am misreading them, but it seemed like a lot of people saw a stern older woman molding a younger woman into shape and just really wanted that experience for themselves.
You know, a part of my brain just clicked.
Uh-huh.
Well, yep, that's right.
I feel the same way about Keely and Rebecca. Keely and Rebecca and Ted Lasso feel like the wholesome version of The Devil Wears Prada. And I personally ship that really hard. It's another, what is it, May-December you said?
May-December, yeah.
Yeah, romance to me, where Keely is canonically bisexual and constantly, she's the younger one, constantly complimenting Rebecca on her appearance and hyping her up and having a huge crush on her. But the older woman is always very flattered. And while there is a canon woman-loving woman relationship between Keely and another, I want it to be Keely and Rebecca so bad, because I think that the trading of advice between the two is so compelling, because Keely is young and has this kind of confidence from the way that feminism and kind of girl bossification and capitalism has built her up as someone who went through that and is still in it. And the way that she hypes up the older of the two with that kind of mindset versus the way that when she's having her doubts, the older woman has that wisdom from her age to pass down. It's so great the way that they build each other up, and I want them to kiss.
I haven't even seen the show, and I'm co-signing it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know what I just remembered for canon, for a film, because I do know one singular film, is Knives Out, specifically the second one where it's confirmed, but...
Yes!
That gay old man.
Oh, that gay old man.
Benoit Blanc! Benoit Blanc! He's married to Hugh Grant, and we're all so happy for him.
Yes.
Benoit Blanc.
So now that we've all talked a big game about how much we like older heroes in romance, what have we done about it?
I'm working on it, I promise.
Oh.
No, I'm really excited to work on one in particular that is... I'm gonna keep acting like I'm an old man who's just heard the term Facebook for the first time. You said May-December, right?
Yes.
But it's between a single dad and a younger person, but they're both Hispanic. And one thing that I'm really excited to write when I go back to working on it is, like I talked about with Keely and Rebecca, is this kind of exchange in life experiences where the young person has a better awareness of queer culture and the older character has a non-binary kid, so like he's not fully unaware of things, but like having this kind of discussion where they're learning from each other, and meanwhile they both have unique experiences with Hispanic culture and their respective cultures, and being able to approach that from two different ages as well is something that I'm really, really excited to work on specifically. I know that, like, especially music. I really love, like, old salsa music is really, really special to me. So to be able to mention that, get the excuse to mention it in a story and use that to bring characters closer, I'm super freaking pumped.
Oh, hell yeah. Noah?
Well, my immortal, Thatch, in Famine Rook, he looks like he's in his 50s, but he's like thousands of years old. And I just realized that I did a metaphor kind of in there where you are feeling and you are much older than you look, but we'll touch on that another day in therapy. I really love him because he's really aged and he has just seen a lot of shit and been through a lot, and he still is just really positive, and he's learning a lot of things about life later in life because he's kind of just been passing through and been, we'll say, a workaholic for most of his life, and he's experiencing things that the people around him that are much younger are like, why are you being so weirdly excited, you know, and they kind of learn to see things differently or appreciate things differently because he is, and that was something that I really enjoyed exploring with him.
Yeah.
And I think really he's the only one that I have. Well, I've done a couple short stories with like men in their 60s.
Do tell.
Well, the one I'm working on for, you know, things and stuff and things. And then the other one is Yakov and the Tale of Epiphany and Croesus, that short story I did for the Rainbow Crate anthology, where that was like literally Old Man in the Woods. And I guess that would be, because Epiphany was much younger, so that would be your... I'm gonna say April, November just to be annoying now, because we... So that was one of those situations. And then really Watt and Cornelius are like middle-aged, so I wouldn't really say they're old, but Watt experiences a lot of those firsts as a queer person, or in general. He's never, you know, spoiler alert, he's never kissed a person in his life, and he's 34, so he's like really starting his life later on, which is a thing I do. Don't look at me, I'll be fine.
Oh, it's a good thing my therapist doesn't read my books. Anyway. Speaking of which, in Oak King, Holly King, both Ren Lofthouse, the Victorian mortal clerk, and Shrike the Butcher of Blackthorn, the Fey warrior, Ren is, like, actually in his early to mid-30s. Shrike is, like, 500 years, but that's basically a Fey 30. And it bothers me that I have to describe them as older, but because romance doesn't end at 30 has to be a slogan, I do have to specify that, yeah, these guys are in their 30s and quote-unquote older. However, on the genuinely old end of the spectrum, we get the short story Mr. Grigsby's Clerk from the collection Tales from Blackthorn Briar, where a Victorian mortal in his mid-60s is romanced by a 700-year-old fae. So it's May-December in both directions. Because Mr. Grigsby is like, oh, my youthful middle-aged clerk keeps flirting with me. And meanwhile, the fae is like, I will take this young man under my wing.
I'm obsessed.
This spring youth of 62.
Yes, I love it. They were so sweet. And it was just like, Mr. Grigsby felt so wanted and loved.
It was very much a celebration of that, like, we don't all in the queer community have the privilege of growing old. Old is sexy, get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah.
So what would we like to see more of when it comes to older characters in romance? Point blank, more of them, but beyond that.
Yeah, 100%. I think I'd like to see more dynamics explored, because the one, like, you just described from your short story is, like, so... I remember that What We Do in the Shadows made, like, a joke about that as a thing. Like, just kind of a one-off aside in the original movie about, I think, Viago having a long-lost lover who was in her 90s by the time that they reunite and he turns her into a vampire. And it's, like, I like the idea of that kind of thing that's, like, oh, wouldn't it be wild if, like, exploring that more genuinely. But also, yeah, just, I don't know. Older people deserve to be loved and have love, and I would love to see just, yeah, more of that in general. And I want it to not end with anyone dying. No, to stop dying. Just be old and happy for a while.
I'm feeling a bit more angsty.
Uh-oh.
Spoiler alert for the next book when Arlo and Thatch get back together. Something happens, and Thatcher's old age catches up with him, and he is rapidly going through shit. I want stories like that, where time is pressing in, we're at the end, how are we enjoying our last time together? Not necessarily, I don't want it to end on page, but I want to see, like, you know, we've made our plans, we're ready to go, we're gonna go on a fucking road trip, or we're gonna open a bookstore, you know, and this is the thing we've always wanted to do together. Let's do it.
God, I'm thinking about it. Oh.
Dealing with the things that they have to catch up with you now or never. Like, maybe mistakes you've made in your life. Like, just, I really, you know, we've been talking about older characters, but we really haven't been playing with older characters. Like, I want characters that are, most of their life is done. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
Now what indeed. Well, thank you for joining us on this roundtable. And until we meet again, where can people find you?
You can find me at Nina Wolverina on Instagram or Blue Sky. I think that's about the best places to find me. Oh, Tumblr, Writing Wolverina.
Yeah, and you can find me on Tumblr, Instagram, Blue Sky, my website. It's all, I think, Neshama Publishing, which is Neshama.
And you can find all of my books and all of my socials on my website, sebastiannothwell.com. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully you'll join us for another roundtable soon.